Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week, former Hanoi Rocks singer Michael Monroe. He has a new album called Blackout States. And on the other half of the episode, we've got Tuk from the band Biters. The new album is Electric Blood. For me, Electric Blood is definitely in the running for best album of 2015, as is Michael Monroe's Blackout States, by the way. No co-host this week, two interviews. I like to get right into it. So let me get right over to Michael Monroe, and here we are. We are speaking with Michael Monroe. The new album is Blackout States. Michael, a pleasure to talk to you. I was a longtime fan. I bought the Not Faking It album years and years and years ago. So I'm glad you're still out there and still delivering rock to us.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure talking to you too. Yeah, it's nice to hear that there's still people who appreciate, good old rock and roll. And
Yeah, absolutely.
doing my best to keep it alive.
So let's just start with that. I mean, the press release has said, and you've said that this is the perfect rock and roll album, or as close to perfect as it can get. Perfectly flawed. Yes. So what makes a good rock and roll album?
Well, I think the band. First of all, I'm lucky to have this band. There's a great chemistry, between all of us, and that's really rare. It just happens once in a blue moon, and to begin with, you have to forget about egos, and just like if you want to get a real functioning band, you're not going to be getting that if you want to control everything and write everything and do everything yourself. And I recorded albums where I played everything except for the drums myself, and I wrote everything, and I know what that's going to sound like. But when you share, I love collaborating with people, especially with cool people, good musicians like these guys. Well, me and Sammy Alpha started this band. We got Steve Conte in, and Carl Rockfist on drums, and now with Rich Jones on guitar. Only the guitarist has changed since 2010. We started this, and we've got the same guys, except we had Ginger on the other guitar at first, and then Ginger left. Ginger was replaced by Dragan, and Dragan was replaced by Rich a couple of years ago. And Rich has really brought something good to the sound. He's added a nice touch of punkiness, the melodic kind of punk, and kind of like the Clash type of, or the Boys, that kind of punky sound. And it's a welcome addition to the band. But you really, to get a band like this happening, you really have to I'm a band oriented kind of guy. I always like the band situation, and even though it's called Michael Monroe, it's Michael Monroe is also the name of the band now. There's a good vibe. And there's not one guy in the band that makes anybody feel like uncomfortable. Like Ginger used to say, "Oh, there's a wanker in every anchor," and it doesn't have to be that way. I won't accept that, because it just takes one guy to poison the atmosphere and make everyone put a bad vibe and throw whammy on everything. And I don't care how good you play, and or how brilliant or rich or famous, or well, that wouldn't impress me anyways. But somebody. However, you may write the best songs in the world, but then it's not worth having a jerk in the band. So it's a great vibe, and it's a positive energy. There's a lot of creative energy in this band. So, and we're all into the same kind of music. We're the best of friends, and we have a great time. You can usually tell on an album if we had a good time making it. It comes across. You can tell if it's been like forced or fake. If you're faking it, you can't really fake that. It's it takes attitude, the right kind of attitude, and musicianship, and good songwriters, and songs that say something a bit more than just the average superficial phony, blah blah blah.
Right.
So to me, and I think this has the ingredients for to me is good rock and roll. It's lyrics that say something, and enough for me to sing it with conviction, and make certain statements without getting too heavy, still and rocking fiercely and viciously and violently, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Now, I hear you're moving around back there. The audio dropped off a little bit on one of those during the answer, but that's all right. We'll
Okay, I'll try and stay close. Is this better?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna stay closer to the laptop.
Yeah. So then, What inspires you now to write a song? Where do you get where do you see the words come from? Is it the same as in the past?
Well, um, partly it's the same. Basically, the same. The basic thing is that I write. I get inspired by everything I hear and see, and my life in general. I mean, the more mileage you have, the more experience, and more stuff you have to write about. And it's really the songs are mainly about my or our personal experiences and our lives and the past and the present and I'm actually I feel pretty happy. I'll never be complacent. I'm and I don't some people say you have to suffer for good art, and I've suffered enough to I mean, I got enough character. I don't need to build any more character. And I've seen enough hardship to you don't have to really be in dire straits to write a good song. But
Right.
to me, it just basically it's positive, uh, positive energy. I like to write about things that make people maybe raise some questions or make you don't have to turn your brain off to have a good time with rock and roll. I mean, it's entertainment, but still. You should. I believe that you should be aware of your surroundings and be. I like to say things that tell the truth and be truthful and honest and not not bullshit. You can't bullshit. So just be for real, and that's it.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned in the first answer that you like the band situation. It's not sort of the Michael Monroe solo show where everybody goes, is at your beck and call, but you were, of course, in Hanoi Rocks, which is a well-established brand, if I can say that. Why not just go back under that name? I know you came back in the early 2000s and you gave it a go. Why not just be Michael Monroe? Many bands have one original member, two original members. Why not use the brand?
Well, first, first of all, Hanoi Rocks was the original Hanoi Rocks in the '80s. Was that band was really like my family, and it was our me and
Agreed.
Sammy Alpha actually was really my best friend and closest to
Right.
me, and we put this band together. But the rebirth of Hanoi that happened in 2002 and lasted was 7 years until
Right.
2009. That happened. I was never. It was never a reunion. I would never do a reunion just to do a tour for to make some money and
Right.
like one off thing and then everybody would just couldn't stand each other and just couldn't wait to get it over with and then okay, I'll never see you again and now we got more money and until the next time, that would never happen with Hanoi Rocks. I never thought that name Hanoi Rocks was gonna be used again, but then what happened was me and Andy McCoy were when I had moved to Finland in '96 after 10 years in New York. I moved to Finland, and then a couple of years uh, down here, I ran into Andy, and we kind of got reacquainted. I mean, it was it was a tragic time for both. I mean, I lost my wife. I was 15 years, and my wife passed away, and then I was, recovering from that. And Andy had
Hmm.
this accident. He fell off the third-story balcony, and he almost. I mean, basically, he should be dead, but he survived. And doctor said he's never going to walk. I mean, his legs were in 100 pieces, and he was recovering from that. He actually is walking now. He's got titanium in his leg, and it was a long recovery process. So it was based on this tragic events, but we got to know each other. We kind of got reacquainted, and the way we were in the '80s, it wasn't like a 50-50 relationship, songwriting wise and stuff. But since I really came onto my own as a songwriter during my solo years, Andy had learned to respect that, and I kind of saw that he wasn't strung out at that time, anyways, and it was like it would seem like it was fun, interesting to see what we could accomplish. I would not do that unless I knew that there was a future. So we were like inspired to start writing. We had some ideas that we never finished when the band broke up in 84 or 85 when after Russell died and the band broke
Broke
up.
up. Right.
So it was interesting to see what we could accomplish. with that situation. But it was me and Andy, and the rest of the guys were kind of originally from my solo band at the time. But we made. I was ready to stick with that for the rest of my life, and using the name was a big step for me. I was thinking, always thought I was never going to make a reunion, but then this situation, it never occurred to me that it could be. It was a rebirth, actually, that we started creating something new, and we did write and record three good albums. And I was, if it would have, as long as it was fun, it was okay. But then after the third album, around that time, it started not being fun anymore, and it was really came to a point where we just decided it was time to just call it a day and put Hanoi to its final rest. I mean, put Hanoi to its permanent
Permanent.
grave or whatever, put it to bed permanently, because it was not fun anymore, and it was with the band's integrity intact. That was the most important thing to me in the '80s. Even, I mean, we were in a situation after Russell had died. We actually didn't only lose our drummer, our bass player left. Sammy left the band back then, so we lost two members, and in a way, and we just weren't together enough to keep it together with me and Nasty and Andy anymore at that point. So, but I would not. It's not just a name, It was just because it was me and Andy. We thought of it, and I just, finally we decided that, I decided, Andy was ready to use the name right away, but I gave it a lot of thought, and I thought, well, yeah, wait a minute, it's our name, it was our band, and due to that unfortunate accident, we lost everything, and kind of why not? It's our right, and we started the band, me and Andy. But that's kind of ironic because that situation, that whole rebirth of Hanoi, there was mainly me and Andy, and the rest of the guys. The lineup on the third album, Street Poetry, that with Conny Bloom and AC Christel from the Electric Boys, that was probably the best. Connie on guitar and AC on bass. That was
Conny
one of
Bloom is fantastic, by the way. I'll just throw that in there.
yeah,
He's a wonderful, wonderful musician.
I agree 100%. Brilliant guy. And so is AC, and we had that was like the best lineup, but it wasn't. I wasn't. Me and Andy went. We were kind of drifting apart again, so it wasn't fun anymore. But it was not as much a band situation as I have now with Michael Monroe. With the band, band is
Right.
called Michael Monroe, and it's more of that's now it's really a band situation, which is ironic compared to what it was with the name Hanoi Rocks with me and Andy, because it was more like mostly me and Andy and the rest of the guys. So that's, but I would never. It's not like a name that I could I would use just as a name because I was in the band. It
Right.
was there was more than me in the band, so I wasn't the only. It wasn't like something that I had by myself. There were other members, and it's kind of sacred. So you can't really just take the name and make a bunch of money because it's a well known name. But what me and Sammy decided when we met after it was around 2009 after we had finished, the new Hanoi was had ended, and I had no plans. But I ran into Sammy in Finland when he was playing over here with the New York Dolls, and I went to jam with them on a couple of songs, and then Sammy said he'd really like to work with me again. So I thought, oh wow, well there's half the band right there. So we started putting it together, and now really, as it turned out, we ended up with Steve Conte on the guitar, and Ginger was there then, but then and Carl Rockfist came in. We had a great band there, and that's only gotten better and tighter over the years, and the chemistry was really fantastic. That it doesn't. Bands like this and this kind of situations is really happens once in a blue moon. So, and we figured we could have thought of a name for the band, but since Michael Monroe is already an established name, and for me, it's still in a way, it's kind of like. I mean, if it wouldn't work out or whatever, somebody would become difficult or turn out to be whatever problems, I would still have my name, Michael Monroe. But
Right.
I was looking for a band situation, and which it became more and more. Now it really is that. So I don't think you can. I mean, I
No,
couldn't
I mean
ask
it's
better
it,
guys to play with. I couldn't ask for a better band than this.
yeah, and it's sort of a little bit like Alice Cooper that has the name
Yes.
and right, exactly. And of course you're playing with Alice Cooper at the end of the month, end of October I should say, because we're September
Yeah,
now.
that's going to be brilliant in Plymouth and Swindon in the UK. I hope that means that hopefully we'll be doing more shows with Alice because he's such a great guy, and I've always would be one of my favorites of all
Yeah.
time, and really been a big inspiration. And so, yeah, I mean, the Alice Cooper band was originally it was called Alice Cooper, and then it was Alice and the rest of the guys, but the band was Alice Cooper. I mean, people tell me, I mean, Little Steven always says, yeah, you need a name for a band. If you're gonna have a band, you're gonna have a name, and it's just you can't just be Michael Monroe and be a band. I says, well, watch me, and we've disputed, we've had that conversation over and over, and many a times, and. I said, no, I know it can work. Why not? And this situation is like that, and everyone respects the fact that it's my. I mean, the songwriting is I mean, even Steve Conte and Rich Jones and Sam. Everybody writes. The drummer Carl doesn't write that much, but still, I mean, like lyrically, if I even so the lyrics that like when Steve writes lyrics, he thinks of me and my world. I mean, we know each other so well that he can kind of put himself into my position. So the words he writes are like he's considering the fact that I have to deliver the words with conviction, and that therefore he writes stuff that I would sing about. Which
Yeah.
is great. Really, and that means people have to just have no egos and just all in it for the right reasons.
Absolutely. And just to finish with Alice, just before we started the interview today, I was speaking with the guitarist Tommy, and he told me to say hi to you. So I'm just going to
Oh,
convey that. There you go.
thank you. That's great. You know him well?
Yeah, I do. He's great. Absolutely
I was just
fantastic.
listening to his solo thing. He gave me his CD when they were here in Finland
Right.
this
Tommy,
summer.
Tommy, Tommy. Great
Hen-
album.
Tommy
Great album.
Henderson, right?
Yep. Tommy
Yeah,
Henderson,
Tommy. It says "I'm a Lie" on the cover.
which is a great album. But let
Oh
me.
no, it says "I'm an alien." I see it now. No, I see it. It's just, I thought it was "I'm alive," but it says
An
I'm
alien.
an alien." Okay, yeah, I like that record. It was good, and also Chuck Garrick gave me his CD too, and good stuff. It's
Bisto
cool.
Blanco. Yeah, you got to love Bisto Blanco. Now,
He's so punk, but yeah, Chuck is fantastic. I love those guys. I'd love to go on tour with those guys because they're so nice.
yeah, oh yeah, that would be a great package right there. But let me just focus back on Michael Monroe because you were talking about it as a band, and I bought that Not Faking It album, which was truly a solo album. I mean, you had Nasty on it, you had Ian Hunter, you had Anton Fig, John Reed. I mean, you had half of the Fraley's Comet back from the
And
'80s.
Phil Grandy, not the let's not forget Phil Grandy, the
Yeah,
guitar player. I mean,
absolutely.
he's outstanding guitarist, and really, God bless him. I mean, it was a wild man, but he was fantastic. I remember Slash was raving about his playing on that record when it came out, and for example, and really played some really great guitar. And had soul. He had soul. He wasn't just flashy trash. It was just really that guy was outstanding guitar player.
Yeah, and
So
and and the album made I mean, it was the second solo album after Nights Are So Long, but it made a splash in North America, mostly. Well, maybe that's not right to say, but thanks in part to Axl Rose showing up in the video for "Dead, Jail, or Rock and Roll," and then of course you went on and played or contributed to "Use Your Illusions 1." Um, Tell me about that connection. How did you hook up with Axel and the Guns N' Roses guys, and how did you end up on Use Your Illusion? How did that happen?
well, they were just originally they were big fans of Hanoi Rocks, and but in the right way. I mean, they took the right ingredients. I mean, a lot of bands that were sort of, so to speak, influenced by Hanoi, a lot of them missed the point. To me, it seemed, on the West Coast, they just took the tried to like copy the look, or they thought it was all about like big hairdo and partying and all that stuff, and being wild and wacky, and they played their hairspray cans better than the instruments. To us, it was more about music and the songs and the attitude, the punky attitude. They always missed most of them. Guns N' Roses got it right. They had their own thing. They had their own total their sound, their style. It was a bit they were a bit heavier than Hannah, kind of Aerosmith heavier, heavyish sort of. And well, I didn't know them until I was shooting a video for Dead Jail Rock and Roll, and we wound up at SIR uptown in New York, and Axel just happened to be. Apparently, he was just walking by. He was stopping by a deli in a corner to get a sandwich or something, and he saw all the police cars and all this commotion going on. He asked what's going on. Somebody is Michael Monroe shooting a video, so he wanted to meet me. So he came to the Winnebago. I was sitting there getting ready or whatever, because we were shooting on the sound stage at SIR, because originally we were going to do it at the Alphabet City between Avenue E and D or something between 3rd and 4th Street. Like there was an empty lot, like real heavy area at the time. But then it started pouring down rain. I was the worst rain for like 20 years. It was like really, we had to change, there was no plan B, but, luckily
Improvise.
SIR, Uptown, yeah, right. Uptown SIR was available. So we went to the soundstage there and then we had the cop cars there. So I did stuff on top of the cars and, with the cops and stuff. But Axel just came to, introduce himself and I said, yeah, come on in if you want to talk. And then he said, oh, he's got some people with him. I said, oh, all right. So, I'll see you a bit later then. Because I couldn't bring a bunch of people on my Winnebago, So I says, later on, we were shooting a video, and it was a long day, but Axel seemed to be really enjoying it. He liked the song, and somebody told me, and I forgot about it. He was actually standing outside talking to people, having a couple of beers and just talking to people. And somebody said to me, hey, Axel's outside, he should, ask him in. And I says, oh, yeah, right, yeah. I'll tell that guy, let's bring him in. And we started talking, and I figured, I'd heard their stuff, and I knew he was a Nazareth fan, because the sound of his voice was really Dan McCafferty. I mean, that's obviously big influence on him. And as it turned out, sure enough, he said, he used to, because his parents wouldn't allow him to listen to rock and roll. He would hide in his bathroom and listen to Love Hurts and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, I could tell. And he didn't know that Not Faking It, the song Not Faking It, was a Nazareth song, a cover song, about Nazareth, because that's the album that it was on was Loud and Proud. That was not that big in the States. So.
Right.
So he said, "Oh, now I like it even more." I mean, he had like a a copy of a tape, an audio tape of Not Faking, of the whole album from the record company. So he'd been listening to it, and he was really into it. So at one point during the video, he seemed to be like dancing to the song and stuff. So I said, "Yeah, you want to come up and do a couple of takes with us?" My manager actually at the time was kept on bugging me, breathing down my neck and in my ear. I said, "Hey, you should get that guy in your video, man." Of course, he was in dollar signs, I'm sure. And I was not good. I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" I didn't even know that he was that famous, and not that that wouldn't have made much difference, anyways. But he seemed like a nice guy, and he was. I liked him a lot. He was a cool guy, and there's some funny stories. We had a good time talking. I said, "Yeah, well, come on up and do the song with me a couple of times," and then that was the first encounter, the first time I met any of the Guns N' Roses, and from then on, we became friends. And then as we were editing the video, there was, I walked into, I gotta say, I walked into the editing room the first time. The first version of the video, it was like Axl Rose all over the place. I said, whose video is this? Wait a minute, you guys are getting a little carried away here. It's like, what the hell is this? It's like, come on, let's get back to the, come on, let's just calm down here.
Right.
Okay, let's make the video, and then if Axl fits, as a cameo, you can, bring him in, and bring him up in the end or something, for a little while, and then make it so if it works for the video, so it doesn't look silly or anything, that it just comes in. Does a chorus or something, then he dances away, whatever, and then it would be cool. And so then we made it that way, and then the video was to Axl, and he thought it was cool. He approved it. He approved of it, and thought that he was okay with it to be on my video. And I must say, surely that worked both ways. He always felt kind of. He felt sort of. He told me that he was always feeling a little like. Maybe not guilty, but sort of like that Hanoi would have deserved to be, the bigger than, because we were kind of apparently, probably kind of like on the verge of becoming, that time before we broke up, it could have been a good time for a band like us. And when Guns N' Roses got as big as they did, that kind of proved that the time was right. But we were just, we just had bad luck. But I says, at least don't feel guilty or anything. But he said, the Izzy always used to tell me, "Yeah, do your hair like Michael Monroe." And he was like, got to a point where he said, "Why don't you just get Michael Monroe to be the singer? Because you wanted me to be like him so bad." But obviously, he has his own thing. So we became friends, and then they flew me over to LA a few times. I went, actually, first time I met Alice Cooper was at the Rip magazine party where Guns N' Roses were playing, and I was doing a song with them. We did Heartbreak Hotel or something. I was playing the harp and singing backing vocal with Axl, and I met Alice Cooper the first time at that party, and then they flew me over to play some sax and harmonica on that song, on the song on Use Your Illusion called Bad Obsession. And while I was there, I've been talking to Axl about the the Dead Boys, and Steve Baders, had passed away. And he said he never really heard the Dead Boys. And I said, oh, wow. So I made an audio tape with the Dead Boys' first two albums. And as we were driving around Hollywood in his car, when the song Ain't It Fun came on, I was like, wow, this song is brilliant. We got to do this on there. Because they were making a cover version album. I mean, the cover song album, Spaghetti Incident, right? So they were working on that at the same time. So Axl called Slash and says, let's put the band together. We're recording this song tomorrow. And we're doing it as a duet. And I was like, oh, wow, that sounds great. So I said, are you serious? He says, yeah, yeah. And I said, well, can we put on the record that it's in memory of Steve Bader? He says, yeah, absolutely. He says, and he was even planning to do a video for the song, but that never happened. But the song was the first single of that album anyways, later on. But we sang it. It was like, really, I mean, I split the vocals kind of, the lines were sort of what was appropriate for each. I mean, he had just broken up with his girlfriend at the time, and that's why I had him sing the line. And if I would tell her she's just a cunt. Yeah. And then I said, of course, the line that any fun when you're broken up every band that you ever begun. But he said, I mean, he sounded like Stiv in places like when he says, any fun when you just feel like you just got to get a gun. He sounds like Stiv. And I was like, it was not a duet. It was more like, there were three of us there, and Stiv's spirit for sure. Yeah. And it was really magical. And I really was happy that Stiv's name was it was my best friend, and it was a big influence on me, and really one of the most important people in rock to me. Yep. So I was ever so happy to have Steve Bader's name be seen by millions of people, because the exposure through Guns N' Roses was great. And all I asked for, I mean, I got a session fee for the sax playing and the harp, and I didn't want anything more, because I just didn't want to endanger. The fact that I thought they might change their minds, and because a lot of those bands that were covered on the Spaghetti Incident, they got greedy. Some of the old, I was kind of almost embarrassed to hear that some of these guys were like, even though they hadn't written a song, some other members of the bands would say, oh, well, I wrote part of that too. It's like the bank of Guns N' Roses, So I said I didn't want anything. I had a manager at the time who then said, who was useless, except then he said, oh man, now let me negotiate a deal for this, this is going to be a single and everything. I said, you stay the hell away from this. You're not going to do one freaking thing. Otherwise, I'll kick your ass, because you're going to leave this alone. I want this song on the album. I don't want any reason for them not to that there's any reason for them not to put it on the album. It's for Steve's memory and Steve Bader's. All I asked for was for them to write in memory of Steve Bader's and just spell my name right. That's all I got for that, and all I asked for. And then, sure enough, that song was on the album. It was the first single, and that was one of the coolest things. So we were friends, and Slash and Duff, and I did a bunch of stuff with them. I mean, Slash and me did the Magic Carpet Ride, the Steppenwolf song. Yep. We did two versions of it for the Coneheads movie soundtrack, and I had suggested this different kind of arrangement, and we decided to send both of them to Warner Brothers. I think it was the movie company then, and so they chose the. And one day Slash called me and says, Michael, you'll be happy to hear that they chose your idea for the arrangement idea. And I said, all right, cool. So, and at the time when we recorded that, it was like in 93, in the summer, they was just finishing the whole tour was like ending in, I think they had two shows at Milton Keynes. The final show at Milton Keynes was cool, because actually Gilby Clarke had broken his hand, or he had his arm was in a cast or something, so he couldn't play. So they brought Izzy in there, and Ronnie Wood was there with his family. They flew him in to guest on Honky Tonk Women with me and the end of the show, and they had me play harmonica on Knocking on Heaven's Door. And actually, my dear grandmother had just passed away before that. I was at the time when Slash called and said, okay, let's go into the studio now to do the Magic Carpet Ride session. I was in Finland at my grandma's funeral, and I was thinking, after a while, I thought, knocking on heaven's door, it wasn't necessarily the song I would have chose to jam on. But then I realized, hey, wait a minute, this is meant to be. It's for my grandma. But I was some cool times we had together with those guys, and Slash and Duff, really sweethearts, always, being the same guys today. They're exactly the same as ever. They never changed. They've only gotten nicer over the years.
Yep.
Axel, I don't. I had always had a good time with him. Whenever he came to New York, he was never late. We had many a times we had dinners, had great conversations about spiritual stuff and really, really highly evolved kind of conversations, and not that kind of LA. I mean, I saw a lot of his friends in LA were kind of like, yeah, check out that chick, and what, that ass and tits and ass kind of stuff,
Right.
which to me was never interesting. I mean, I was never interested in that. I've never been with a groupie in my whole life. I can't imagine spending a night intimately with some complete stranger and never seeing them again. That's just me. I mean, I'm a freak.
Right.
For rock singers, that's unusual, I guess, but to me, it's kind of embarrassing to, some people are proud of like how much they partied. They think it's really cool, and to me, it's more like embarrassing. But we had, like I said, Axel was. I have nothing bad to say about him. He was always really cool and polite with me, and but now the past years, I haven't really seen him for like a long time, like at least 15 years or something. I haven't really. And there was a show we did in Helsinki where there were he's new Guns N' Roses was headlining, and there were other bands too there during the day. Skunk and Nancy and somebody else, and we played early in the day. But I mean, he knew where to find me, and I wasn't gonna impose it. I mean,
Pose.
I wasn't gonna force myself on him. I knew where he was, but I just figured if he wants to see me and say hello, then he knows where to find me. But he never did come around, so
Yep.
I haven't really talked to him since then. But Slash and Duff, especially Slash, I've been pretty very close with, and they played in Finland twice with his solo band. We've opened up for them in Finland. Last May was the last time we opened up for them in Helsinki at Ice Stadium, and he's a sweetheart, and I always love with him working with him is always fun, and
Fun, yeah. In
I
fact, he's playing Montreal tonight, and that's what I'm going to go see. That's the show I'm seeing
really
tonight. Yeah, absolutely.
wow,
Slash at the
yeah,
Metropolis in Montreal, and
cool.
they deliver live. Miles kills it singing live, and of course Brent Fitz and the rest of them. They are a great live band. You got to give
Absolutely.
that.
I'm
And
really glad that they're so big too.
yep.
If people get the right kind of rock and roll.
They really do, and of course, since we were talking about not faking it, Stiv, of course, wrote helped co-write She's No Angel on that
Yeah,
album.
we
So
rewrote some of the lyrics together. Yeah,
yeah, so there you go.
yeah,
Michael, we were supposed to do 20. We're at 35. I have a
that's
million more
fine.
questions, but I know
Okay.
you have 10 more interviews. But I do want to say thank you for your time today, and of course, Blackout States comes out in October. I've had a chance
Yes.
to hear it, and I recommend if you're into the sort of old time rock and roll. In fact, if you're just into rock and roll, forget old time, just good old rock and roll.
Yeah.
Blackout States. It's it's
Good
it's
rock and roll
it's
is
honest.
timeless. Timeless. Yeah, and it's honest too. And let's not forget, there's a Dee Dee Ramone written song there called
Yep.
"Under the Northern Lights." That Dee Dee, when back in the day, I just say quickly, when I lived in New York for the 10 years in New York, there was in the early '90s. There was a time when I was hanging out with Dee Dee Ramone quite a lot, and he had a bunch of songs. He'd left the Ramones, and he had a bunch of songs he had written that he wanted me to do, and I still have a couple of audio cassettes of those. And I had his handwritten lyrics for this song "Under the Northern Lights," but I never had a demo of it. But I remembered it, him playing it on an acoustic guitar, and he said, "Michael, you should do this song. You're from Finland, right? It's called Under the Northern Lights." And he had, there's a line in the song that says, even says, "And the gray Finnish sky is frozen like her ice cold ice that say no." So I had that song for 25 years almost now, and
Wow.
I've been meaning to do it for each album I made. I always thought, maybe they'll fit this one and that one, but it never did. And I made different demos of it. But now it's time for it to be recorded. So never before officially recorded and released Didi Ramone's song called "Under the Northern Lights" is on this album now for the first time, which is kind of cool to me. It's It's an honor and a privilege, and keeping
Keeping the
Dee
spirit
name
alive,
alive
as
too.
they say. Yeah.
Exactly, the true spirit of rock and roll.
The true spirit of
Yes,
rock and roll. And by the way, I'll finish by saying this: the album is honest, and I like the fact that you're out there as Michael Monroe. You're not uh, basing your career on the brand of Hanoi Rocks, which I think is a mark of integrity and honesty as well. And so,
thank you.
yeah, so
Yes,
you
it's
know,
all about that, the integrity. That's what it's all about to me.
it really is, Michael. Always a great pleasure speaking with you. And if you ever have anything else you want to promote, more stuff, or you want to do another one of these in a couple of months, just let me know. I am more than happy to do it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Mitch. It's not really nice talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Hope.
Michael.
Thank you. Take care now.
You too. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Bye.
And there you have it, folks. My interview with Michael Monroe, formerly of Hanoi Rocks. Lots of talk about Axl Rose, Guns N' Roses, and of course the past. But the new album is what we're focusing on, Blackout States. Going to make a lot of people's top 10 lists for best albums of the year. And speaking of top 10 albums of 2015, one of my personal favorites is Electric Blood by a band called Biters. And I got a chance to sit down and talk to their lead singer, Tuk. Great interview, great personality, great rock and roll. If you haven't discovered the Biters, I certainly suggest that you head over to iTunes or Spotify or anywhere where you can stream or download or buy music and pick up Electric Blood. In the meantime, have a listen to Tuk. We are speaking with Tuk from the band Biters. The new album is Electric Blood, and it is by far one of the greatest albums of 2015. And quite honestly, in its genre of a rock and roll album, it's one of the best albums I've ever heard.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you dig it so much.
Let's get right into it then. It's sort of being announced as the first official release, but you've done EPs in the past, and you've done a bunch of other stuff that's sort of been on more vanity pressings, but how did this one come together?
Well, I think, we released a bunch of stuff on our own and kind of had, borrowed money from here and there to try to release some stuff. But this was, we did a tour in November, and couldn't get any label backing, and it was getting really hard. And I told the guys, I said, let's go on tour, raise a little bit of money, and record a 4-song EP, another release. I'm like, we got to keep stuff coming out. We can't wait on anybody. So while we were in the studio recording those 4 songs, our manager called and said we had a bite from the label. And he's like, don't get scared off by who they are. I'm not going to tell you, but it's really good. And he wanted me to get scared because it was the Earache Records, and they do a lot of, crazy metal stuff. But
right, of course.
The deal ended up going through, and we ended up just putting 6 more songs onto the 4 or 7 more songs into the 4 we were already recording. So it worked out really well.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that, sort of if you want, the marketing plan, because you were putting out a bunch of EPs, 4 songs here, 2 songs there. Is that sort of the way to go? Is just get out new music? Because everybody says, well, new music doesn't have a place, nobody can get heard, but you're sort of bucking the trend, right? You're putting out a lot of new music.
Well, the thing was, man, that was like kind of lack of label support. It's way cheaper to release 4 or 5 songs or record them, than it is to do 12. And that way I could have more of with a limited budget, do more of a steady stream of songs. And for a while we had a really good rhythm, but I took it back to almost like the 1960s where people released singles, and it worked. It gets you a lot of product out, and you can, save money from selling those to record the next thing.
Yeah. So what happens to all that music that came out before Electric Blood? Because, if you go to eBay or Amazon, you'll see Last of the Dying Breed on sale for like $400, and you go, yeah, okay, sure.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, I mean the stuff is just selling at these ridiculous, because supply and demand. It's just you can't find it. Is there now that you're with Earache, are you going to collate all this stuff, get it all together, and remix them and put them out as a proper release?
Well, I don't think so, man. Earache doesn't own any of that old stuff, and I want to do a singles kind of thing where I do a greatest kind of like I pick a couple songs off each release and do it. But I really like that this day and age where everything is so disposable and cheaply made and put out just for the minute, that you can create these limited pressings and they become collectible. It's kind of old school style. I like it that way.
Yeah, it's an interesting way. And you do have this old school vibe to you. I mean, you were influenced obviously by Alice Cooper,
I
obviously
love
by,
70s Alice Cooper.
oh, yeah, 70s Alice Cooper. Well, you listen, I won't even argue with you. 70s, 80s, 90s, anything Alice Cooper is fantastic.
Yeah.
I saw Alice play twice in August, and other than your album being the best thing that I've heard, that was the best shows I've seen. So, you know.
Well, there you go. Well, that's good company to be in, Alice.
Yeah, but these days, the kids are all into rap and to pop, and why go back to this old school kind of sound? Why not say, all right, let's just do like everybody else and try to sell 1 million downloads of our pop single?
Well, the thing is, man, like, especially a lot of like the newer rock bands where they incorporate whatever is like trendy at the moment. And I'm not saying anything bad. People should be able to incorporate whatever they want.
Of course.
To me, I couldn't sleep at night knowing I was like doing something strictly to make money. I really like the style of music that I play, and I like all kinds of music, man. But what I play is what I choose to play. It's not popular at all, so it's an upstream battle, and nobody's going to be able to say the Biters are dated as the aspect of we're not going to have any EDM breakdowns in our stuff. Our vocals aren't going to be like auto-tuned. You're not going to look back at the way you look at some of like, the 80s stuff with the big reverb snare and say they were doing it. There's some artists that just transcend generations in time. AC/DC was one of them. Tom Petty obviously was one, the Ramones. And I want to be in company of those bands where it's just classic and timeless and trying to, fit in.
So how hard does that make it for you, though? Because when you said you had a hard time finding a label, did some of the majors, without naming anybody, just look at you and go, "Hey, listen, that's 1977. We're not doing it." I mean, did you run into that?
We've played for every major label, most of them, and I've said the story before. None of them said no, and none of them said yes. They all loved it. But the thing is, man, how the fuck are you going to market a band like us? There's maybe a handful of bands doing what we're doing. And I think the last explosion really was like Jet and the Darkness and the Hives and stuff. That was 2003 or 2?
Yep.
So you're looking at a decade ago. And I've been waiting on the next batch of kind of like badass rock bands to come through. And I was actually hoping to ride on some of the coattails. And then, it dawned on me that I'm going to have to be on the vanguard and kind of push, like make rock and roll, a little cool, a little dangerous again, because it's, if you're a kid, a lot of the rock and roll is more archaic. It's like dad rock. So how do I do something, for our next generation? And that's been the hardest thing to try to figure out how to do.
And have you figured it out? I mean, is it lyrical content that makes it more appealing to the younger generation? Is it a certain guitar sound? I mean, have you figured it out yet, or is it just like, listen, we're just going to do what we do and hope for the best?
I kind of want to keep doing what I do. I don't really want to commit, and be like, all right, well, what sells right now is this Tyler guitar tone and this lyrical topic. That, to me, is something I definitely don't want to do. I just want to be me. I think it's more of an attitude, and just being as real as possible. If I was a child, 11 years old, and I liked music, and I didn't have any cool older brother, and I wanted to get into something, and I turned on the TV or I turned on the radio, rap and EDM are a lot more exciting than what's going on in rock and roll right now. A lot of the bands still being heralded as big rock acts, like Foo Fighters, great band, but they've been around 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting for some fresh blood to kind of, get in the mix. But hopefully that happens soon, man.
Well, I gotta say, I'm in my 40s, and I grew up on Cheap Trick and Alice Cooper and Kiss and all that stuff, and I've been listening to those records over and over again because, like you, I haven't found anything new and exciting. And then I discovered you guys, and I'm like, okay, now we got something. You're at that level where you're good, competent, whatever you want to call it, enough to go, yeah, that's the next big band, you know, and it's exciting to have this a new purpose or a new rock and roll going on. So I thank you for that. But
Well, thank you, man.
now, you mentioned before that you need to keep getting product out, sort of old school, you know, like 2 albums in a year, like Kiss used to do, or Aerosmith, or whoever. Is that sort of the plan now that you're on Earache and Electric Blood is out? I mean, as we get to like August 2016, do we have a new Biters album?
Well, that's a good question because I really need to stay on tour and kind of push this record. And I don't know, man. I always want to put out music. It depends if they give me enough time off the road to write a record. That's the most important thing. But if the record takes off, man, and starts doing really well, I would love to keep pushing it, and milk it for what it's worth. But we'll see what happens, man.
Now, speaking of live shows, the bands that we've mentioned, Alice Cooper, Cheap Trick, they really grew their reputation on live shows because, listen, those bands, like your band, were not the popular thing. There was disco, there was this, there was that. How important is the live show to you?
It's actually really important, man. And live for the Biters, it's got a lot more aggression, more of like a punk attitude. It's really, really sweaty. And because I'm from the old school of like, I love how the Clash used to play back in the late 70s. And I grew up in the punk scene, so that element is in there. Especially now, we're not doing big clubs or anything. So we don't have a stage show. It's like lighting and fireworks and pyro. It's just us. So basically, it's as bare bones as you can get. So, it's good to build a reputation like that. Just being killers live,
Yeah. Now I know you're from Atlanta and you've been to Montreal a bunch of times, and it's hard to get booked up here. How do you build How do you build a live following? I mean, how do you get the word out that hey, we need to go see the Biters?
I don't know, man. We're truly blessed because we do have like a niche, like underground kind of following of really loyal people. I think the first thing that starts off is with you got to have good songs. You could be the best live band, but if you don't have a good hook in there, it's just not it. And vice versa, you can have good songs but be boring as hell live. So kind of have a good package, good songwriting, and really tight live stuff. Now I'm a stickler with my band. They get mad at me because I'm really anal about things live because I just feel like rock and roll's got such a bad connotation attached to it for new bands of not giving a fuck or kind of being out of tune or shitty.
Sloppy.
That I really want to prove something, that rock and roll can be powerful like it used to be.
Yeah, and I keep referencing those older bands. The reason they were successful is because their shows were like a fine-tuned machine. I mean, everybody has a bad show here and there, but you cannot say that an Alice Cooper show was a sloppy affair. There was, this happened at this moment, and it's important to be organized and on the ball. So smart of you to be like that, quite frankly.
I agree, man. It's not like we have our shows choreographed. It's improv. It's still wild. It's still live. But, I make sure that everybody is on the same page, You can't, rock and roll can't afford to have like a sloppy ass Guns N' Roses live at the Ritz thing right now. I love that, but it's just, we've got too much going against us to not come out swinging,
Yeah, I agree. Now, you mentioned songwriting. What I like about Electric Blood is that there's not these 14-minute songs with eight guitar solos and a drum solo. It's, get to the chorus, don't bore us, 3 minutes, in and out, thank you very much. Is that sort of the songwriting approach that you want to keep taking? Just let's get a nice quick song, boom, hit you with it, and let's move on to the next one?
Well, so to me, as far as a musician, when I go on my deathbed, I'd want a person to be known as a good songwriter. So I pay really attention to that. And there's something to be said about being able to, write something in the 3.5 minutes and get it in, get it out. It's not as easy as it seems. And for the style of music, man, I just think that's where we need to be. If I was in a metal band or something, I would drag it out. But as far as us, me coming from the school of loving that old power pop stuff, I love when you get to a hook. Sometimes I don't even put a pre-chorus in the songs, you know?
Right. So talk to me a little bit about your songwriting process. How do you sort of sit down? Is this one of these things where you write it on the back of a tour bus and then you demo it, or is there a whole sort of machination where you have the process and you have to be inspired and you go sit by the beach? I mean, how do you come up with your songs?
It's really weird. You know, I always, like, write down phrases in my notebook or my phone when I'm on tour, and my brain is always trying to view the world as a songwriter. And sometimes, man, I'm really uninspired, and then all of a sudden, I can bust out, 7 or 8 songs. But my catalog is starting to get big. I've released over 40-something songs, and that's not to mention my previous band.
Mm-hmm.
So now looking for new topics, new chord progressions, new grooves. That's the more difficult part, So I'm always searching.
Yeah, well, you've been doing great so far. How long do you ride the Biters sort of band and stuff before you say, okay, it's not working, we got to move on? Or like, I mean, do you have a plan of like, we're going to give this another 5 years, and if we're not at this level, I mean, are there goals you're setting out to reach and milestones that you need to reach for the band to continue, or is this it regardless?
There's no plan for this, man. The future is so unwritten, you don't know. And a lot of the times, not knowing what's going to happen next is like accounts for a lot of stress, and that's why bands break up. But it would be nice to make some money off this and pay my bills,
Yeah.
There's hardly any money in rock and roll right now, and I would love to get to that bigger, wider audience to be able to continue to do it. But, I can't tour like we are now.
Forever.
So I'm just praying and putting faith that something is going to happen and it's going to elevate us. But, I think I'm always going to play music. I always have. So stopping writing or stop playing, I don't think that's in my agenda.
No, but at some point, you get to a point where you either have to go with this band or you have to get a different vehicle and say, okay, Biters didn't work, let's do the Tuk Smith solo project or whatever. And how do you get to that decision? I mean, again, is it something where you say, let's give this till 2018, and if we ain't at level A or level B, it's a tough one, right?
No, I think about that all the time, man, and it's so difficult. The other thing, you think about it, I've branded this band. There's only one original member, and that's the drummer, Joe. And I've branded this band for the last 5 years. And if I thought about doing a solo record or something,
mm-hmm.
you're going to think in your head like, wow, I have to start over. Yeah, you have your fans, but it's not going to be the same.
Right.
So it's almost like you've built this relationship with branding the name and the band playing together, and it's be really hard to start over. So I've tried to do everything in my power to keep this band together.
Yeah. So where do we go from here? We're now September 2015. What does sort of the next 6 months, a year look like on the road? Is there any opening slots for any of these bands? I mean, has Alice Cooper called and said, "Hey, you want to open for us on a club run or anything?"
Well, if Alice Cooper is listening, Alice, I would love to open for you. That'd be awesome. But no, man, there's some stuff in the works, and we haven't really got a lot of offers from bigger bands. And, we just did a full month run of us headlining, and we're going to the UK to headline too, because, I could sit around and wait, or we can go out there and do it. But hopefully some bigger bands approach us. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So basically the next 6 months to a year is just tour, and then tour some more.
It is. I know Ginger from the Wild Hearts reached out to us. Are you familiar with the Wild Hearts?
Yeah, the Wild Hearts are fantastic.
I'm such a huge fan of the Wild Hearts, and I think Ginger's a great songwriter, and I love Hey Hello. So I'd like to do something like that. We'll see what happens, man. I'm going to put a lot of positive energy and faith.
It's funny now that you mentioned the Wild Hearts, you've sort of got that same kind of vibe about you. That especially the early Wild Hearts stuff. You're not that different band. You've got the same energy actually, which is actually good.
Well, that's a compliment. So thank you.
Yeah. So, Tuk, absolute pleasure talking with you. It was. I've been trying to chase you down for 6 months to get an interview done, and I'm so glad because. As an older rock fan, you've actually it energized me. It's nice to have fresh new music, and you guys do it well. Electric Blood is definitely a top
Well, I
10.
really, dude, thank you so much for supporting, and thank you for asking intelligent questions. Like, thank you. I really appreciate it, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, if you come to Montreal, please, look me up. I want to be there. I cannot miss it again.
Okay, well, we did twice last year, so I'm gonna hold you to it this time.
I know. I have the wonderful story that I had heart surgery and blah blah blah. But okay, that's the past. Now it's time to rock and roll. And
Yes, sir. Yes,
Biters
sir.
rock and roll is the way to go.
Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you, Tuck.
All right.
Bye bye now. And there you have it, folks. That was my interview with Tuck of the band The Biters. The new album is Electric Blood. Earlier in the show, we had Michael Monroe. His new album is Blackout States. I would recommend that you check out both albums, especially if you like honest, sincere, integrity-filled rock and roll. Electric Blood by The Biters and Michael Monroe, Blackout States fits that bill. As always, thank you for listening. Check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon. Facebook, you can look up Mitch Lafon, or of course the One-on-One with Mitch Lafon Facebook page. And if you listen on iTunes, head over and leave me a rating, 5 stars preferable, because it helps bring awareness to the podcast and what I'm doing. And of course, thank you for listening. Always greatly appreciated. I know you have many choices out there, and I'm glad that my podcast is one of your choices. So thank you, folks. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tuck. Bye for now.